Welcome back to this Live This Sunday talk show here on the Arise News channel. With me in the studio, I still have Professor Bola Akintanewa, Director General, Bulitag Center for International Diplomacy and Strategic Studies, Professor Anthony Kila, Professor of Strategy and Development and Director at the Center for International Advanced and Professional Studies, CIAPS, and Professor David Awurawo, and of course, Chike Ogea, former Commissioner for Information, Delta State, and Managing Director at Mark Foley Limited. Well, gentlemen, it looks like an all-male cast today. Okay, we have had three guests on the program. First subject, crude oil theft. Second subject, what was that again? Remind me. NBA. The NBA and the problematic 62nd National Conference. And then, of course,
the football.
We discussed the football development master plan. Okay, three major issues. Yes. If we can treat all of that very quickly, and then we can add to it just one more topic today. Let me start with you, Professor Akintanewa, who is in the United States doing grandpa work. Prof, how are the grandchildren?
Well, the grandchildren are doing very well.
It's women are here that do omungo. Prof is now doing omungo.
Well, we are nursing father, nursing grandfather. Yes. You see, even though the children do not think of coming home because of these problems of NNPC, NBA, all theft, I think from the education I'm going to get from you today, I will try to convince them. Dr. Fawibe made 3 or 4 good points that I agree with, and 1 or 2 that I do not subscribe to. He agreed that, yes, there is need for state of emergency. I agree with him because it's very critical. He made the point that in Nigeria, I think he talked about the inability to secure the oil sector has the potential to leave a bad legacy for President Muhammadu Buhari. I quite agree with that again. He talked about the mafia. I agree with him. You raised the question. But you see, where my points of disagreement begin are this. 1, he did say that President Muhammadu Buhari should give marching orders. And I asked myself, how many times will he give marching orders? There's no time he has been giving any marching order that there's any big deal outcome. Buhari was Minister of Petroleum Resources when during the military era. He is currently also the minister in charge. It is the Minister of State that is actually acting. So apart from being the president, he's also a minister, he's in charge. And in this case, if Dr. Fawibe is saying that we need no more of a kid gloves in terms of approach, well, my position is that President Muhammadu Buhari is a president that is not listened to, 1. He's a leader without a followership, 2. And why I'm saying this is simply because of the most recent case of the NNS Gongola, Nigeria's naval, vessel that was unable to attach, to arrest this vessel that came to load oil within the territorial waters of Nigeria. Now, the critical observation there is that you have a foreign vessel that came to Nigeria, anchored in Nigeria. Who authorized that? How can a foreign vessel come to load overnight? The vessel is called Heroic Idun. Now arrived Nigeria 12 midnight, dead midnight. The NNS Gongola accosted it and they discovered that this vessel did not have any documentation paper from the NNPC. And they tried to arrest, in fact, the NNS Gongola reportedly gave instruction to the vessel to go to Boni office for further investigation. But the pilot refused directly. Why? Because the agent of the vessel also reportedly told them, do not listen to any Nigerian instruction. That was the message. And on this basis, the vessel loaded fully all night and still left. It took the intervention of Equatorial Guinea, for instance, to intervene to help arrest the vessel. Now I ask myself again, what about the application of the rule of hot pursuit in international law? International law provides that the Nigerian police can, on the basis of commission of a crime within its territorial waters, and I can say here that Article 11 of the United Nations Convention on, you see, this maritime thing, UNCLOS, enable Nigeria to do that. So in essence, what I'm trying to say is that if the NNS Gongola will not arrest, and a foreign vessel can come and load without authorization and can still escape, where is the complicity of government is there?
Okay, so, yes, clearly, Prof. This is a point that has been made by many persons: connivance, collusion, what else? But quickly, I would like to go around the panel. So if we can keep our comments short so that we can take as many subjects as possible. Professor Awurawo, before your, internet times out, are you there? Okay, it's not available there. So I come back to the studio here in Lagos quickly to Professor Anthony Kela. And after Professor Kela, Chike Ogia. Professor Kela, good to have you back on the program.
Good to be here. You want me to talk about the oil theft and other things?
Yes.
Let's start from the oil theft. I think it's a shame that the government cannot secure the territory and the oil. It's bad for business, it's a crime. And I think that I agree that there's a collusion with some people, but people, not institution. And I think it is important that we understand that we do not see crime as sabotage. You see, somehow we tend to confuse this idea that some foreign government or entities are colliding to sabotage Nigerian interests. It is not so. It is criminals perpetuating crimes. People who come to rob you in your house are not sabotaging you. They're trying to steal your thing. We should not look at it as one government versus our government, institution versus institution, but mere criminals committing piracy. It is true that in maritime law, any offense committed on sea is considered piracy, but then pirates don't go sabotaging. They're not terrorists, they're thieves. And that is what we have here. Whether it's local or international, what matters is that we have a government that can defend our wealth, our sovereignty, as it were. Yes, we're going to say. Then we heard about the law, the NBA Convention, If you want me to go to that, although it's tough.
No, you can go ahead, although I was reserving that for Chiko.
Oh, but well, would you hear him? I mean, funny enough, I was at the AGM. I attended
sure.
most of the social events because I was invited there. And it went pretty well until I was called later to tell me what's going on. I think it's a very bad thing. I do not like the idea of considering lawyers fighting and acting as vandals as a logistical issue. I think it goes beyond that. It's something that besmirches the tradition. It is a very bad open sore that needs to be seriously cured. I think coming in, the new president has an additional agenda on his planned list, which is to say lawyers should not be seen this way. And then he needs to ask himself, that group needs to ask himself, how should lawyers be seen in Nigeria? Then they need to go to question 3 to say that what is required of lawyers to be seen the way we think they ought to be seen and heard. Because, I mean, if you do a bachelor's in law, you would know that the way you dress, the way you are supposed to speak, and if you become a judge or a jurist, places where you ought to go and not to go are really prescribed. This is a highly regulated profession. So for us to see such outbursts for whatever reason in the world, I argue that organizers have not done well, but those lawyers have gone beyond, I was angry. You don't do that if you're a member of the bar. You know, being a lawyer, you know, is a profession that arrogates itself with the term learned. That is far from being learned. And I do hope that the bench and the bar takes it very serious. I think when students, I don't want to disparage anybody, but you know, if students of mechanical engineering misbehaves, we can say it's a logistic issue. But when lawyers do it, I think we should be very tough on them so that the future lawyers can understand this is a profession that has a lot to do with decorum and appearance.
Very good. It's good that Professor Kila, you have moved to the second topic. Yeah. I would like, Chiko Gea here, who is also a practicing lawyer, to take it from there. Our officers in the Temple of Justice who end up as vandals, complaining about food, badges, struggling over minutiae, and conducting themselves after a fashion that will qualify as contemptuous of the nobility of the profession.
Well, the first thing I will say is that in about 32 years or so, I don't think I've seen the inside of a courtroom.
No problem. But you know the principles.
Yes, but what I also would say is that Ibirunke, may his soul rest in peace. He was my
teacher, veteran teacher.
He was my director general when I was in the law school. And there was a class he took, which was called professional ethics. Which dealt with exactly what we saw. And he will practically be turning in his grave if he thinks that is why I want to believe that those were not learned gentlemen that perpetuated those acts. Because the truth is that for you to get called to the bar, there is a phrase that is usually used. You must be a fit and proper person. And definitely that behavior was not behavior of fit and proper people. You definitely did not show the kind of decorum that is expected of you for someone that has been called to the Nigerian bar. And indeed, many of them, I'm sure, have been called to one or two other bars, maybe the British bar or whatever. But be that as it may, the president of the Bar Association, Olude Akpata, has said they will look into it very seriously, and they will get to the bottom of it to see whether there was any kind of sabotage or whatever, and they will deal with, the culprits. And I think that should be done because the image of that profession, which is very, very sacred, should be protected at all times. That is in the case of the bar. Then the other one that also interests me, of course, the other two, one is my passion, which is football, and the second one, is where I come from, which is the Niger Delta.
Allow me, as a jurist and a friend of the bar, can I just say why you say that?
Yes.
It is important that the NBA, the new NBA, realizes that we need to shift more towards jurisprudence in Nigeria. The philosophy of law, the ethics of law, the essence of law. more than just the practice.
That will come
of
from the
going to
courts.
bed. Yes,
it will
I
come
think
from the
so.
courts. Don't worry about that.
Giving an idea to Yakubu.
Yes, indeed,
Yakubu.
But that will flow from the
The
courts.
31st president of the NBA.
But like I was saying,
go ahead.
the oil situation, I find a bit baffling because what obviously was happening, why don't we just ask a simple question? How did Yaradua sort it out? Do you think these guys were not there when Yaradua was there? Is that the militants in Delta State, in Bayelsa State, in River State?
Sorry to
Two
interrupt
different
you.
things,
What-
yeah.
Under Yaradua,
Yes.
the militants were engaged.
Yes.
This time around, the Buhari administration
Yes.
is giving out surveillance contracts.
No, because they have not been
and
engaged.
now they have given
Why have they
surveillance
not been
contracts.
engaged before now?
Okay,
And
they've
why
done
are
it now.
Now
To-
they've done
to
it.
Topolo.
And the point is that,
Government Ekpemunkpolo.
yes, they have to do it across board. Tompolo is
How?
not the only stakeholder in that ecosystem. They have stakeholders in River State, they have stakeholders in Bayelsa State, they have stakeholders running across the whole Niger Delta. So you can't give it to just Tompolo and expect to have peace.
But
That's what I'm telling you.
hold on.
You have to give it across because Tompolo can police the area where he comes from. But
Okay.
what happens in River State? I doubt if he can go to
are you aware?
those pipelines
No.
in River State that have their own local
Chike,
warlords
I
that
get
are
your
there.
point. All of you from South,
Yes.
all of you want this.
Yes, you are
surveillance
also in
contract.
Niger Delta.
Don't go and
You are
collect.
part of the
Don't go and
Niger
collect
Delta.
one. And then I want to see you on this program where I need you. But are you aware that amalgamated trustees of Arewa Youth?
Yes.
They too are asking for contracts.
Yes, let them go and police the mines in Zamfara State. They have
No, they want
have
to be
things.
part
No, they can't be part of that because
Why
you see,
can't they?
that's what we're saying. We're talking about. It's just the same. Let me
Indigenization of-
talk. Hold
yes.
on. This is the same argument. Let's be serious. We put forward for state police.
Yeah.
And what is it? We are saying that the locals know the locality and they are the ones that can be effective. How do you bring a man from Lagos to go into the creeks of Yenegua to police a pipeline inside?
I say
He doesn't even
people
know where
want
the place
to come
is.
from the north.
No, let's even leave that. So I'm even telling you from Lagos. So that will not work. Let the North police what they have. You can't take a man from Asaba now and say you're going to police something in Zamfara. How is that possible? He doesn't even know
No,
where
the
the
people
thing
of
is.
Zamfara want to come to Asaba.
No, the people of Zamfara cannot come to Asaba. They should stay in Zamfara and police what is in Zamfara for the general good of Nigerians because everything we have is for all of us. Don't forget. These are national treasures and assets. They belong to the country. It just so happens that they are situated at a particular place. Yeah. And what we are saying is that the locals of those places should be the ones that should protect
But the
these
people
national
from outside
assets.
the place want to come and share from that cage.
No. When it gets to Abuja, they share. Definitely. Is that not what all the governors go and collect every day? So that is that about that. And that is my thinking. Then finally, in the case of the football, if you ask me, they brought out this great master plan. I can see what is flowing through it, grassroots sports. They want to go. Remember when we were young, the academicals, remember under 13s, all of that. And football will grow organically. Yes. But all of a sudden, we got to a situation where all we look at now is just the national team, the Super Eagles. How we are feeding that team, nobody knows. You just want to take players that come out of England, maybe they were born there and they were exposed to better training methods, and you take them at 20 or at 18. That's not going to do us any good. We have to produce our own local talent because, you see, Nigerian talent even is different. Nigerian talent in Nigeria is different from Nigerian talent in England, I can assure you. Okay. And that was why they said at the time that the strength of the Super Eagles was in the fact that they had no discernible
kind
of pattern of play. That's right.
Gentlemen, I don't want Professor Awura was
yes, please.
internet connection to time out. Professor Awura, we've been having fun here. Over to you. From crude oil theft to football to NBA conference.
Thank you very much. I would like to start with the crude oil theft for obvious reasons, because I have practical experience in that area, and also because the phenomenon has posed existential threats to the country itself. I am from an oil-producing community, In fact,
Where is that?
OMS,
Where is that? Is it on the map of Nigeria?
Ozoro, Elu, and Obrode communities.
Okay, is it on the map of Nigeria?
It is there.
You are sure?
OMS 26 is on my mother's land. OML 26 is on my mother's land.
Okay, thank you for defining your bona fide.
Yeah. Now, let me tell you the dynamics, what the government needs to do. The government, I agree with Ogia that the communities need to be involved in the policing or security of the oil facilities. If the communities are not involved, it will not be successful. They may have to look for someone, I don't know how they want to involve them, but it should go beyond just Tompolo, right? Because each time I go home, I know what efforts I had to put to calm down boys to ensure that, peace reigns in the community. Because they ask themselves, the impression is that government has come to take our land and they give us nothing. So what can we do to force government to give us something? That's the impression. And so for the oil facility to be secured, government needs to look for a way to involve the communities in the security of the pipelines. But there are two levels. There is the level of, of course, we have onshore, offshore. We have the theft onshore. We also have the big guys, like the ship, the vessel that President Kiterewa was talking about, that all of us are familiar with. In fact, those ones are even stealing more than the smaller ones, onshore. The government needs to further strengthen the security agencies to be able to police the oil facilities. In fact, somebody just called me a while ago and said, why did they award contract to Tompolo? Couldn't government have given that money to the Navy for them to be more effective in tackling the oil theft thing? But my position is that a problem of this nature, the multi-track approach should be adopted by government. In other words, the Navy is doing its own, the Army is doing its own, the NCDC is doing its own, all of them working in synergy to ensure that, oil facilities are protected and oil theft, is tackled. But the key thing is that the local communities must be involved in whatever arrangement government puts in place for it to be successful. Now to sports. Well, I agree that grassroots sports development is important. Football being the focal point at this point. I mean, the main points have been made. But what I want to add is that I don't quite agree with the statement made by the president that football is the king of sport and all that. We can say football has been given attention. Other sports too need to receive attention. Take, for instance, our team didn't qualify for World Cup this year. The under-20 female team crashed out in the quarterfinals. But our girls went to Commonwealth Games and, put smiles on our faces. So the attention we are giving to football, we should ensure that similar attention is given to other sports, such that if we are not doing on one, others, we can, our athletes will do well on others, and we can be fine. In fact, I want to argue that in all those other sports that, our boys and girls are involved in, we should even expand. Why are we not developing capacity in swimming and others? Australia did best in the Commonwealth Games. It did so well because it won medals from, several sports, swimming being, the key one. So, whereas as we are developing football, we support all that effort that government is making, and we encourage the government that will come after to also, continue on the same routine. Don't throw away the master plan. But what we want to add is that other sports will receive, equal attention, such that, we can have multiple avenues for sports development in the country. And of course, for the NBA, they are lawyers. Those who did that thing are lawyers. They are not anybody else. They just couldn't close the gap between knowing and doing. So what the NBA will need to do is to ensure that the law takes its course. Those who didn't represent them well, should be, their structure should be made to, take its course. such that in future engagements, they won't have such an embarrassing, development. Of course, so that the profession can continue to maintain its a high standard that it has been known for over the years.
Okay, thank you very much, gentlemen. Let's take another subject. Key stakeholders in the People's Democratic Party are exploring all manners of options to try to find a solution to the standoff between the party's presidential candidate, Atiku Abubakar, and Governor of Rivers State, Nyesom Wike. Meetings upon meetings have been held in Nigeria, and others have also been held in London, the United Kingdom, and other European capitals, as the search for rapprochement goes on. Major actors in other Nigerian political parties have also joined the pilgrimage to the British capital. Well, this is a subject before us. We have had, Nyesom Wike meeting with Peter Obi, former President Olusegun Obasanjo, Peter Obi, presidential candidate of the Labour Party. This was a big topic this week. And within the PDP, we have heard that the Wike camp is making specific demands. One, that Atiku will only be allowed, in their own reckoning, to do only one term if he wins. Two, that Iyorchia Ayu has to go. Yes. And then the party itself, in the course of the week, we saw Iyorchia Ayu, the chairman of the party, trying to project an image of unity within the political party. I have argued elsewhere, on the same station, on the morning show, that this is scandalous. We've been following the Tory leadership process in the UK. Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak, they're talking about issues. Yeah. Cost of living crisis, cost of business crisis, energy cap crisis, and all of that. They're talking about, Article 16 and Irish Sea and the issue with a border on the Irish Sea, concrete issues. Yes. But here in Nigeria, we're talking about Nyesom Wike, we're talking about Seyi Makinde, whether he's on a frolic in the UK or is pure nonsense, in my view. Yes. But what do you think? Anthony Killer, you are also a political scientist.
Well, yes, I am. And I'm embarrassed about what is going on in my country. I'm embarrassed the way people are dealing with things. We have this habit in Nigeria. When things happen, we ask ourselves, how did we get here? We get there because we do not pick up the little things while they're going on. And we find ourselves in a very scandalous and embarrassing space. The optics look so bad. Why are Nigerian politicians meeting abroad to discuss Nigeria? Is it because there is noise in Nigeria, or because there is no light, or why? Or they're acting as if they need a neutral ground between warring factors and factions, and they cannot deal in their own country. We have sort of separated totally ethics from aesthetics, and we do not care about optics anymore. And I think this thing is going to bite us. This lack of regard for the connection between ethics and aesthetics and the optics that it shows is what leads our politicians to jump from one party to the other without regard for anything. It is what makes somebody stand up and does anti-party activity because there is no consequence, because we do not see even how serious it is. Now, this demand that one politician is having, sad to say, people must know that negotiation is part of politics. But must you go negotiating after you've rocked the boat, and to get it, you have to hold your party for ransom? I think it's a test of leadership for the PDP. I think we have to look at the PDP very well. If those leading the PDP are, it's politically incorrect to say man enough. Let us say, if they're leaders enough to stand up and address an issue frontally, to know that you do not beg to lead. You lead by being an example, a model, a vision, and the ability to take a risk. Otherwise, you become a bureaucrat, or you become somebody who begs for every spot. I think it's a leadership test, and I think this is a chance to show it. On the matter of not discussing issues, it is where we are. But here, I appeal to the fraternity of the media. I think a time should come. Guilds of Editors, NUJ, League of Columnists, all those that matter in Nigerian media, at some point they should sit together and agree with themselves that there is a standard. As from this day on, it could be after the election, anytime we have a politician in front of us, let us ignore the frivolous thing and say to them, let's talk education, let's talk health. And perhaps we need to keep pushing them, those of us who care, to say, give us figures, give us when you do it, how you do it, and why you're going to do it that way instead of the other way. Maybe that is a leadership test for the media as well. And this idea of putting text into context, allow me to go back very quickly to the sports thing that I didn't comment on before. It's the same thing that goes there. You have a president that is 7 months to out of government, setting up a master plan, launching a master plan. I mean, what is the matter with us? Can we not even see how it sounds, that it doesn't sound good? A master plan is a good idea, but it's something you do 3 months when you enter government. Actually, it's something you set up to show that I'm hitting the ground running. No matter how good the content of a master plan is, you don't do it on your way out. You do it whilst coming in. And I think regardless of where we stand on this government, where we stand on each master plan, I think it is important for us to know that if we do not call out these things now, we're going to find ourselves with those ones coming in 2023 as people who have gone to London to negotiate. We're going to have somebody influential in government that has no regard for consistency, loyalty, decorum, and a place of statesmanship. And I think we need to be very clear about that.
Okay, points well made. Chike Ogia, quickly.
Well, you know, the issue about our politics, if you ask me, I will look at it from 2 points of view. One, we talk about this, not putting the issues on the table. We just might be trying to beat the gun. I think it's a few more days for that to happen. Politics really start when? In September?
Yes.
Well, that's the campaign.
The campaign.
Yeah, so it is at the campaign that people bring their manifestos and you come and start interrogating them. What people seem to be doing now are jostling for places. And you like you rightly said, that is what politics is all about. You see, what is going in the PDP, which is the only party, unfortunately, that I have ever been in my life and which I intend to, because that is why at some point, I realized that the issues in Nigeria are not about decency, are not about, like you said, what we want to do for the people and all of that. It's just about these political players, and that's why I took a back seat and went back to the private sector. But the truth is this, whether you like it or not, the people that play this game, they invest so much in it. That is why right now you see Wike is the fulcrum of everything going on. Ask yourself, why is that so? Because this gentleman, I do feel for him. I will not lie to you. I do feel for him. For the simple reason that when all these politicians abandoned that party at different points in time, and they went to other parties, and the intent at that time was to destroy the PDP, Wike stood firm. But again, that does not give Wike the right to be the president of Nigeria because he stood firm at those times. And that is why they all have to come and sit down and say to Wike, yes, you have done this, you have contributed this, but this might not just be the best role that is suited for you. And this is what you can do. And I guess that's what he's trying to do. He got very disappointed. He came a close second in the presidential elections after the South-South governors had said the thing was coming south. How eventually it went north, nobody knows. I guess that was one problem there. Then he said, even he himself said, I'm not interested in vice president. I wanted to be the president. But again, he said people came to say to him, don't worry, they'll give you that to appease you. And again, he didn't get that. And that was the second problem. And now, like you rightly said, why do they have to go to London for these negotiations? That's the only point I don't like. Those optics are not good. They can sit down here, negotiate what they have to negotiate. People get what they have to get. And we move on.
But it will appear as if the big question is whether Nyesom Wike is working against the party as a fifth columnist or is loyal.
Well, the truth is this, Ruben, let me answer that quickly before we move on. If Wike is working against the PDP today, he will have done it much later than everybody else did. anyway. So it might just be his turn.
Yeah, but I think
and he might be entitled to that.
He might be entitled to it if we follow
because
this.
they have all done so anyway.
Here's the thing. He would be entitled to it. He will follow this mentality of saying that I have done so much for the party, so I should get this. Res publica. Politics is not that way. The common goal is not about I kept the house, I was there before you.
No.
It's my way.
No.
Or
the highway.
Or the highway.
No. Politics is about what you negotiate, not what you deserve. And that is what is going on. They are negotiating.
Let's bring into the
It's about what you negotiate.
It's also about what people allow you to do.
So that's all that
It's about
will
what
happen.
people allow you to do.
Yes.
Professor Bola Akintenewa, okay, your insights on this matter, people meeting in London and all of that.
Begin with the submission of Professor Killer. There is no vacuum in political governance left to me. Consequently, there can be changes in continuity. If Professor Killer is saying that the government is about to check out, why not do it as at the time they are coming in? No, you can have it. If you have a good plan there and you have a system that allows for 4 years, renewable or otherwise, subsequent governments can continue. So I wouldn't subscribe to the argument that you cannot do certain things.
Oh, no problem. They've done it. They've done it already.
Yeah. Look, you see, the issue is that we need to address the more critical problems there. Now, for instance, I admire the submission of Chike Ogia on the role, the position of Wike in this matter. Now, the two conditions, one, that Atiku will not do more than one term, and that Ayu must be removed. The question I ask is that, look, the PDP has in its own constitution the rotational principles, policies, that it is the time of the South to present a candidate for the presidency. But midway, the goalpost was shifted. Now, the same thing has happened to some presidents in the past. Everybody will agree to one term, but at the end of the day, they will not respect that. So I ask myself, if, for instance, Wike is not insisting that certain conditions must be met, I think that he will be made a fool in the foreseeable future. I think there is the need for discipline. There is need for honesty of purpose in this particular matter. And as a matter of fact, you see, going to London to go and hold meetings should be seen at two complementary levels. The first level is that, look, London is a second home to many Nigerians, those who can afford to travel. And now, if they now want to go there, they can do so. But the implication for foreign policy, implication for national development.
Prof?
That's... Yes, please.
Yeah,
okay,
Prof. Yeah, I get your point. I would like to take just one more topic for you and Professor Urawa. Well, Professor Killer is also here. You guys are all in the same range. But about Angola's presidential election, where we have been told that the results have shown that the ruling People's Movement for the Liberation of Angola, the MPLA, will maintain its nearly half-century in power by a slim majority. But the country's main opposition party, the Union for the Total Independence of Angola, or UNITA, has vowed to challenge the results. Incumbent President João Lourenço garnered 51% of Wednesday's presidential vote, with more than 97% of the votes tallied. Well, Professor Awurawo, I'd like to come to you so that you can comment on this as briefly as possible. Angola presidential election.
The results have been announced, and the MPLA that has been in government since independence, they will continue in government if the results stand. The party hasn't done badly in its governance of the country, although at some point it was clear that they didn't manage their oil resources well. But in the past couple of years, they have tried to adjust in that, so that Angola remains, one good example of states with oil resources, which is fairly well managed. But of course, the opposition party has said it will go to court to challenge the results. The result is quite close. If it's had good reasons to do so, well, why not? They should go to court and challenge it. Why they tell their supporters to be peaceful and wait for the rule of law to prevail, wait for the court to decide whether their case has merit or not, such that whatever the outcome is, let all the parties involved accept it so that Angola can move on with its life. So we don't have another African country again that will be plunged into instability and violence on account of disputing election results. So far, so good. If the results are, if the results stay as they are and the party continues, hopefully Angola will continue on its fairly good trajectory of governance and stability within the African continent. So we just wait and see how things turn out, while we appeal to everybody to be calm, while we expect the courts to decide the final outcome.
Okay, thank you, Professor Awurawo. Very quickly, Professor Kila. MPLA versus UNITA in Angola.
In Angola,
briefly.
Yes, I followed. The very tight result. I thought UNITA was going to win, actually, but it shows that it's a very tight thing. And it's a shame that we have this thing in African countries where results are contested. Let us hope that they resolve it, and going forward, African countries will have elections where the winner will, loser will concede and say, let's move forward, and just like everywhere else.
Ruben, 1 minute. The only thing I want to say about this, I like the fact that the professors of international relations are commenting on it, but I recall that in the 70s, when I was in secondary school, which was this same, I think Jonas Savimbi, MPLA
and UNITA was there, yes.
Those same parties.
MPLA has been in power in Angola for about 50 years.
That's just what struck me.
Yes, it's the same people.
Wow.
The same people.
Okay,
yes.
Okay, we've got to go now. My apologies, Professor Akintenewa. I'm sure you have a body of knowledge on, what goes on in Angola. But your brother professors and Chike Ogea, they've already dealt with it. Thank you very much, Professor Akintenewa, Professor David Awurawo, and Professor Anthony Kila, and Chike Ogea. Thank you very much indeed. You've been watching This Day Live, the Sunday talk show here on Arise News. I'm Ruben Abati. For my entire team here in Lagos, bye for now, and thank you very much for watching. We'll be here again next Sunday. Thank you.